Imagine walking past a stranger on the street or, sitting across from a new colleague in a conference room and having this immediate physical allergic reaction to them.
Oh, yeah, I think we've all felt that at some point.
Right. And I'm not talking about their cologne or their tone of voice. I mean a visceral, unexplainable repulsion to their actual being, to their soul, basically.
It's, uh, it's a completely different way to frame human interaction. Because we normally just write off that sudden dislike as a clash of personalities, just a subjective psychological quote.
Exactly. But according to the text we are unpacking today, what you're feeling isn't just a bad vibe. It is an instinctive detection of a warped, deformed, non-material structure.
Yeah, this text essentially argues that our reactions are mathematical, like we're sensing an actual architectural collapse in the person sitting across from us.
And the root cause of that collapse is exactly what we're going to spend this deep dive exploring. So let's unpack this. Our source material today is a series of excerpts from an essay titled Gratitude, the First Element of Life Sublimation by Hu Fen.
And that was translated by Treasure, right?
Yes, translated by Treasure and edited by Kyer. And the mission of this deep dive isn't to talk about gratitude as some, polite social habit.
Right, it's not about writing thank you notes just so your family thinks you're well-adjusted.
Exactly. This text argues that gratitude is a literal, structural component of our existence. It dictates our metaphysical place in the universe.
I love how it takes something so basic etiquette, really, and elevates it to the level of cosmic geometry. The author posits that your capacity for gratitude literally determines the physical, or rather, non-physical shape of your life.
Okay, I want to dig straight into that allergy concept we mentioned because it's such a striking way to open this framework. The text asserts that lacking gratitude creates a deformed, non-material life structure.
And notably, the author writes life in all caps throughout the text, treating it as a distinct, tangible entity.
Right, but I struggle a bit with the mechanics of this. I mean, how do we get from this person didn't say thank you to they have a deformed soul that makes me want to sneeze?
Well, to wrap your head around the mechanism, you really have to look at how the text defines a non-material structure. Think of gratitude as the tension cables on a suspension bridge.
Okay, I'm visualizing that.
So, when you express genuine gratitude, you are acknowledging that you are supported by outside forces, nature, other people, historical wisdom. You are distributing the weight of your existence outward.
And that creates symmetry, right? It creates...
Exactly the case. It's perfectly balanced.
So if I lack gratitude, I'm essentially claiming I support my own weight entirely. I'm hoarding all the credit for my survival.
Which is structurally impossible. And when a structure tries to support itself without anchoring to anything else, it warps under its own density. It becomes asymmetrical.
That's like bad posture, but for your soul.
That is a perfect way to put it. And the text explicitly states that deformities lack beauty. And things without beauty make us feel instinctively upset, irritable, or even disgusted.
Wait, so according to the text, when we dislike or hate someone, it's not just a personality clash, but an instinctive rejection, like an actual allergic reaction to their spiritual deformity.
Yes, exactly. When you are sitting in that conference room with an ungrateful colleague, you aren't judging their manners. Your balanced, non-material structure is physically repulsed by the dense, collapsing gravity of their asymmetry.
Wow. I suppose that makes sense on a practical level, Think about a person who takes all the credit for a team project.
Ah, the worst.
Right. You don't just find them annoying, you find them deeply repellent. They are operating like a black hole, just sucking in energy and refusing to radiate anything back out.
And the author really stresses that this isn't a man-made, socially conditioned feeling. It is a biological or, I guess, metaphysical constant. Your structure is rejecting their structure to protect its own symmetry.
Okay, so if we accept that premise, that a deformed soul causes this kind of universal allergic reaction, it implies there has to be a place where perfectly symmetrical souls go so they don't have to deal with the rest of us.
You think so, right?
Does the text actually map out where that is?
It does, actually. It introduces this fascinating environmental sorting system. The author argues that the shape of your structure directly dictates your cosmic location.
Cosmic location.
Yeah. Animals, for example, have life structures that are less perfect than human beings. So because of that structural limitation, they can only survive at what the text calls animal levels.
Okay, so they stay at their level. What about humans?
Well, humans who achieve perfect natures, who the author refers to as celestial beings, have superior life structures. So they get to inhabit higher spaces, specifically named the 1,000-year world and the 10,000-year world.
Okay, I have to admit, when I first read about thousand-year worlds, my skeptic alarm went off entirely.
Oh, for sure. It sounds like pure high fantasy.
It really does. How does the text ground this? Because framing it as an architectural blueprint is one thing, but claiming there are hidden cosmic worlds feels like a massive leap.
Well, the author actually anticipates that skepticism.
Mm,
He provides a very grounded scientific analogy to explain it. To understand these worlds, you shouldn't think of them as magical kingdoms hidden in the clouds.
right.
Think of them like the layers of the Earth's atmosphere.
Okay, the atmospheric analogy. Walk me through how that applies to a non-material soul.
So look at the air around us. It seems like a uniform, invisible soup, but it's incredibly stratified. Gases separate into distinct layers based on their molecular structures, their density, and their weight.
Right, like from science class.
Exactly. You have the troposphere right here at the surface where all heavy weather happens.
Mm-hmm.
Above that is the stratosphere, then the mesosphere, the ionosphere, and finally the exosphere, which just fades out into the vacuum of space.
And heavy, dense gases can't survive in the exosphere.
Right. They lack the buoyancy. They're forced to stay low.
So, translating that to this cosmic framework, if my non-material structure is heavy and deformed because I'm walking around hoarding credit and refusing to show gratitude, I am fundamentally too dense to rise.
Yeah.
I am stuck down here in the cosmic troposphere.
Or even lower, yeah. But if your structure becomes perfectly symmetrical through the outward distribution of gratitude, it loses that dense, selfish weight. It becomes buoyant.
Oh, I see.
And then you naturally rise to the stratosphere or mesosphere of existence. Those higher atmospheric layers are what the text means by the 1,000-year and 10,000-year worlds. It's not magic, it's metaphysical physics.
Metaphysical physics. That's fascinating. And the text uses a very specific word for this upward movement, right? Sublimation.
Yes, sublimation.
I found that choice brilliant. Because in chemistry, sublimation is the process where a solid turns directly into a gas, entirely bypassing the liquid phase. It's a rapid, profound elevation.
An evolution into a less dense, higher energy state. And that is the ultimate goal of life, according to this essay, evolving from a dense, solid state into a lighter, expansive state.
But to achieve that sublimation, to generate the buoyancy required to reach the next atmospheric layer, you need a mechanism.
Right.
And that mechanism is exclusively gratitude.
Exactly. Which begs the immediate question, how do we actually do that?
Yeah, if I want to shed my density, who am I supposed to be thanking? Because just saying thanks to the barista this morning doesn't feel like it's going to catapult me into a 10,000-year world.
No, probably not. The author provides a highly specific blueprint for this. It's essentially an 8-point checklist of appreciation.
8-point checklist, okay.
But what's really compelling isn't just the items on the list, it's the architecture of the list itself. It forces the reader into an expanding radius of ego loss.
How so?
Well, it starts at the absolute grandest cosmic scale and progressively zooms in layer by layer until it hits the most mundane human interactions.
Oh, wow. Okay, let's explore that radius, starting at the widest lens, the cosmic or natural level. The very first point in the text is thanking the greatest creator, or God.
Right.
But the way it describes his gratitude isn't abstract at all. It's intensely sensory. The text says we must be grateful for having bright eyes to see the starry skies, the rivers, and the lands.
Yeah, it asks us to thank our ears for letting us enjoy the splendid melodies of nature.
It even mentions the free but invaluable air and pure water that allows our survival.
It grounds a cosmic scale entirely in your own biology. You aren't being asked to thank a distant concept. You're being asked to recognize that your physical capacity to witness the universe is a borrowed gift.
And acknowledging that immediately starts to chip away at the ego's density.
Exactly.
And there is a specific highlight in this first natural category that completely caught me off guard. Right alongside thanking the universe for starry skies and pure water, the text passionately includes romantic and physical love between men and women.
Yeah, that part really stands out.
It calls physical and emotional pleasures blissful slices of heaven designed by the Creator. It actually talks about the intoxicating joy of that exchange.
It's a really striking inclusion, isn't it?
It really is, because so many frameworks that deal with spiritual elevation or sublimation, they demand asceticism. They tell you to reject the body, to ignore physical pleasure, because the material world is a trap.
Right, the whole flesh is weak angle.
Exactly. But this essay flips that entirely. It says the intimate physical joys of being alive are tools for cultivating symmetry. Don't escape the physical world, appreciate its intoxicating moments deeply.
By framing physical joy as a gift rather than a sin or a distraction, The text anchors the non-material soul to the material experience. It suggests that profound appreciation for a slice of heaven on earth creates the buoyancy needed for actual heaven.
Okay, so the radius narrows from the natural world, and we hit the second category, the spiritual guides. The text explicitly names Jesus Christ, Buddha, Muhammad, and Lao Tzu.
Right.
And I want to make sure we are crystal clear here for you, the listener. We are not endorsing any specific religious viewpoint or theology here.
Absolutely not. We are remaining strictly impartial. We're just reporting on the claims made in the source material.
Exactly. And what's interesting about this text is that it isn't making a theological argument for one specific religion anyway. It treats these figures almost like historical architects of the human soul.
That's a perfect way to phrase it. It's looking at their utility as spiritual innovators. The author claims we owe immense gratitude to Jesus for coming to the mortal world to atone for humanity with his life, bringing hope to those who were suffering.
Right.
And similarly, it asserts we owe gratitude to Buddha, Muhammad, and Lao Tzu because their collective wisdom acts as a stabilizing force for human dignity.
The text says these figures provide inexhaustible and precious spiritual values, and that they resolve our inner sadness. In the context of our non-material structures, it's as if these guides provided the instruction manuals for symmetry.
Yeah, even if you don't follow their specific religions, you benefit from the structural integrity they introduced to human history. They offered humanity the tools to avoid deformity.
So acknowledging their contribution is a vital step in shedding that historical density. You didn't invent morality or hope out of thin air. You inherited it.
Exactly. Which brings the radius down to the human sphere, the relational level. And the language the author uses here is just incredibly poetic.
Oh, it really is.
When discussing why we must thank our parents, it says they exerted tremendous effort to raise us, and that a parent's love is so heavy that, quote, even a green mountain cannot carry it, and even time and space cannot extinguish it.
Even a green mountain cannot carry it. That metaphor gives physical weight to parental sacrifice.
It really does. If you think about the atmospheric analogy we talked about, the love of a parent is a massive anchoring gravity. If you refuse to acknowledge the weight of what they sacrificed for you, that unacknowledged weight transfers to your own structure.
Wow. So you become dense with ingratitude.
Right. You absorb the weight of the green mountain instead of letting gratitude vent it away.
That's heavy. Literally. And then from parents, the radius expands outward again, thanking your children for the joy they bring and thanking your friends and relatives for their encouragement when you are in trouble.
It's a systematic mapping of your support network.
And then it pushes you further out to the societal level. It demands gratitude for your teachers. The text uses the classic concept that you see because you stand on their shoulders.
Meaning your intellect isn't entirely your own.
Right. It's a composite of everyone who suffered through grading your papers and answering your questions. But here's where it gets really interesting for me. The next step. Thanking people with high ideals for drawing their swords and rendering help to you during emergencies.
Drawing their swords.
I know. It's such a vivid, heroic image amidst a list of daily appreciations.
It really paints a picture. It makes you think of first responders, of good Samaritans, of the people who refuse to just stand by with a smartphone when a crisis happens.
The idealists who actually draw their swords to intervene, acknowledging that there is a protective layer of strangers willing to risk themselves for you, is incredibly humbling.
And that humility is the exact mechanism of sublimation. Every time you realize how deeply reliant you are on others, from the creator to the spiritual guides, to the parents, to the sword-drawing strangers, your ego shrinks. Your density drops.
And the final ring of this expanding radius is the most mundane, but maybe the most frequent. Thanking your colleagues, your classmates, and total strangers for their sincere praise and cooperation.
The grocery store clerk?
Yeah.
The person who holds the elevator?
Exactly. You are structurally bathing your soul in the recognition of an interconnected web.
If you follow this blueprint, you systematically dismantle the illusion that you are an isolated, self-made entity. You align your non-material structure with the reality of the universe, which is entirely interdependent.
And that alignment is what creates perfect symmetry. Okay, I buy the logic of the buoyancy. I see how shedding the ego allows you to rise.
What?
But I'm struggling with the other side of the coin. What if I just stubbornly refuse? Suppose I look at this 8-point list and decide I don't owe anybody anything. Is there a cosmic trap door? What actually happens to the ingrates?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the author is completely unsparing when it comes to the consequences. If you refuse to align your structure, It's not just that you stay where you are.
What happened?
The text states that those without gratitude have no love in their hearts, they never repent, and they are ultimately short of humanity. Because their structures are deeply deformed, they generate a specific kind of gravity. They fall into what the author calls the evil wallows of power, money, and fame.
Wallows, like a pig in the mud.
Precisely. A wallow is sticky, it's heavy, it's a trap. If you lack gratitude, your ego demands constant validation from the material world to support its asymmetrical weight.
That makes total sense.
You become obsessed with power, money, and fame because you are desperately trying to prop up a collapsing structure.
That is such an accurate diagnosis of modern burnout. Think about the sheer density of the corporate ladder or the exhaustion of social media vanity. It is mud.
Oh, absolutely.
When you are constantly grasping for the next promotion, the next dollar, or the next ounce of clout, without ever stopping to acknowledge the web of people supporting you, you feel incredibly heavy. You are wallowing in the density of your own ambition.
And the cosmic consequence of that wallowing is permanent. The text explicitly states that these ungrateful individuals will never attain the chance to ascend to a higher space of life. They're permanently grounded. The mud becomes their entirety.
It's a terrifying thought, being structurally locked out of evolution. But the alternative the text offers is just as absolute in its brightness.
Right. Conversely, the real reward.
Yes, it says that real happiness, light, and a bright future belong to the appreciative. By making this blueprint a daily practice, you are ceaselessly evolving your structure towards celestial quality. Daily thanks bathe you in the greatest creator's spirit.
You are essentially doing soul calisthenics every time you say thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You are straightening the posture of your existence. And as you do, you prepare your non-material structure for that ultimate sublimation into the thousand-year worlds.
Which makes the very end of this essay so incredibly jarring. We have spent this entire deep dive unpacking high-minded cosmic geometry. We've analyzed the stratospheres of the soul, the inexhaustible spiritual values of historical innovators, and the catastrophic gravity of the ego.
We've covered a lot of metaphysical ground.
We really have, and yet the author chooses to wrap up this essay dated August 16th, 2005, with a brutally simple, almost comedic behavioral check.
It is a remarkable tonal shift, I have to admit.
I'm just going to quote the ending exactly as it's written. After all the metaphysical warnings, the author writes, "Comrades, learn gratitude. Even dogs know how to wag their tails to give thanks. Are we not as good as dogs?"
It completely pierces the veil of philosophical pretension. You spend pages contemplating whether your soul is symmetrical enough to reach the notosphere, and the author essentially taps on the glass and says, look, if the cosmic architecture is too complex for you, just look at Golden Retriever.
Are we not as good as dogs?
It's hilarious, but it's also a devastatingly effective reality check. Dogs, according to this very framework, exist at a lower, less perfect animal level. They are trapped in the cosmic trochosphere.
Right.
And yet, even with their limited structural capacity, they instinctively understand the mechanics of appreciation. They wag their tails. They acknowledge the hand that feeds them. The author is pointing out the absurdity of human arrogance here. We possess this profound capacity for perfect symmetry, this ability to sublimate into celestial beings, and yet we regularly fail at a task that a lesser evolved animal does effortlessly.
Yeah, if a dog can vent its ego to say thank you, a human being has absolutely no excuse to be stuck in the mud.
It brings everything we've talked about right down to the floorboards.
Yeah.
You don't need a PhD in metaphysics to start aligning your structure today. You just need to be willing to wag your tail a little bit.
It's the perfect distillation of the essay's core message. Gratitude isn't an intellectual exercise, it's an action. Well, we've covered a massive amount of ground today. We started with the concept of a spiritual allergy, mapped out the atmospheric layers of the soul, dismantled the ego through the expanding radius of appreciation, and ended up comparing our existential manners to a dog's tail.
Quite the journey.
But I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over on your own. Something that takes this framework out of the individual realm and applies it to the world we are all currently sharing.
Right, because if gratitude is a literal, structural building block of our individual existence, the societal implications are massive.
Exactly. We've established that one ungrateful person operates like a deformed building block. They cause an allergic reaction, they suck in energy, and they warp the space around them. But what happens to the structural integrity of an entire society when it collectively forgets to say thank you?
That's a chilling thought.
When a culture decides that the green mountain of parental sacrifice is a burden, or that the strangers drawing their swords are just doing it for attention.
A society devoid of gratitude isn't just unpleasant or rude. According to this blueprint, it is structurally unsound. It is literally collapsing under its own density.
Are we collectively building a thousand-year world together, supported by the tension cables of mutual appreciation? Or are we all just hoarding credit, dragging each other back down into the sticky, heavy wallows of power, money, and fame? Think about that the next time you interact with a stranger at the grocery store, or the next time you step outside and look up at the starry sky. Are you adding weight to the world? Or are you creating the buoyancy we all need to rise?